This girl was engrossed in taking a selfie but didn't pay attention, almost dropped the flower pot on someone else's head. Unexpectedly, that person was the guest who came to rent her room today. As soon as he went to check the room, Dante was satisfied and wanted to hire this room, but he bargained because the rent here was too high. Gongshim definitely did not agree, but Dante was a lawyer, so he used the law threatening Gongshim about what just happened. Gongshim had to rent a house to him. In fact, Dante's true identity is the lost grandson of a rich family. Although lost her grandchild 25 years ago, the grandmother always tried to find him. Whenever someone called to tell about her grandson's whereabouts, she would immediately go to meet that person. Even if she was lied to over and over again, she still wouldn't give up. The second grandchild, Jun-soo, although not loved by his grandmother, he still supports her and goes with her to find his brother. Back to Gongshim, she is staying with her older sister and parents. Her older sister is Gongmi. Gongshim works alone to earn money to support her family. Because she wants to have money to learn Italian, Gongshim has to rent the terrace to others, which is also her favorite place. In addition, she also works part-time at a gas station. People say that parents hard to take care of the children, but this family is different. The older daughter goes to work to make money, while the younger daughter stays home to cook. Mom and dad just wake up and go out to eat. Gongshim's parents value her older sister very much, so when they heard that their youngest daughter wanted to learn Italian, they immediately expressed their attitude. The mother said that with your clumsiness and ignorance, you should leave. Because of such pressure, Gongshim was so tired that she went bald, so she had to wear a wig every day. The next day, she went to see Dante to discuss rent, but when she saw him stealing money from the children, Gongshim was extremely offended, so she returned the deposit and refused to let him rent it. But Dante kept insisting and even took a photo to prove that Gongshim had received the deposit, forcing her to him rent the room. After received the house deposit, Gongshim went to an extra Italian class. She learned very quickly and studied very enthusiastically. When she finished studying in the evening, Gongshim went to the gas station to work part-time. She was happily celebrating when a customer came over gas, but did not bother to turn off the engine, because to ensure safety, Gongshim asked this woman to turn off the car engine. Not only did this woman not listen, but this woman also threw trash in her face. Then this woman got out the car, hit and insulted Gongshim. A gentle person like Gongshim had to endure it in silence. It wasn't until the manager intervened that the woman stopped. Gongshim hid in a corner crying in self-pity. Why does she have the right to do that? On this side, young master Jun-soo, because he was hated by his grandmother, so he went to drink a lot. When he left, he bumped into a gangster, causing them to drag the whole group out with him at the parking lot. When a fight was about to happen, Dante witnessed it and came to stop it in time. In addition to being a lawyer, he also worked as a service driver, and the person who booked him was Jun-soo, because in order to protect his guests, Dante took it upon himself to deal with 4 tall gangsters. At this time, a strange thing happened. All attacks from the enemy in Dante's eyes suddenly slowed down, so he easily guessed what will they do next. They were beaten to a pulp by Dante. They knew they couldn't fight back, so they turned around and took advantage of Dante's carelessness to throw knives at him. But unexpectedly, Dante reacted quickly and caught the knife with one hand. A twist and a punch shattered the beer bottle. Then he rushed forward continuously, causing the 4 gangsters to lose miserably. After that, Dante drove the young master home. It was late at night. Gongshim came home tired. Seeing that daughter was injured, the mother hurriedly took her phone to take pictures of all the wounds on her daughter's body, thinking that she would pity her daughter, but she didn't. The mother took a picture of the wounds as evidence. Later, the lawsuit will claim a lot of compensation. The mother didn't even let the father apply medicine to her daughter because she was afraid the wound would heal quickly. Wait until the eldest daughter comes home, and the mother hurriedly asks how she can get the most compensation. Gongmi did not care about her younger sister's condition and just said one sentence: if you want this case to become big, you have to listen to both sides. There's no way you can listen to just this girl. Then, she went up to her room. This made Gongshim extremely angry with her sister. Actually, Gongmi's mood was like that because she was also under a lot of pressure. Just when she went to a party with her superior, she didn't perform well. Her superiors blamed her a lot. The next day, according to her mother's advice, Gongshim had to go to the hospital to get an injury certificate from the doctor. Unexpectedly, when she arrived at the hospital, she met Jun-soo, who also went to check wounds yesterday because he was a man. Jun-soo gallantly opened the door to let Gongshim in first, but she thought he was a bad guy, so she always resisted. While standing at the counter waiting for the medical certificate, Gongshim tried to read her name correctly with the nurse. This made Jun-soo, standing next to her, keep laughing. At this time at work, Gongmi was surprised to find that the person who assaulted her sister was the wife of the president of the law firm that she had a very difficult to enter to work. Her superiors said they had called Gongshim to mediate, but was refused. This serious incident must be handled properly, because if it is exposed, it will affect the lady's political career. Gong Mi stood next to her and was extremely worried. She was afraid they would find out that the stubborn girl was her younger sister. After a moment of pondering, Gong Mi mustered up the courage to go into the superior's room. She wanted to receive the lawsuit this time and said, "Please believe me, I will convince that girl to give up the lawsuit." After receiving trust from her superiors, Gong Mi immediately called her younger sister came home. On the way home, Gong Shim discovered that Dan Tae was stealing other people's money. In fact, just now Jun Soo came to meet Dan Tae. He wanted to give money to thank Dan Tae for helping him, but Dan Tae didn't accept it, so the two people struggled. Unexpectedly, Gong Shim misunderstood and called the police came. Look, Gong Shim until Dan Tae was almost handcuffed by the police. Then Jun Soo reacted. He explained as if this had just passed. Gong Shim, knowing she was wrong, she was so embarrassed that she had to leave. When Gong Shim returned home, she saw that the whole family was happy, so she was happy too. She thought her older sister had found a way to get justice for her, so Gong Shim gave her the medical certificate. But unexpectedly, her sister advised her to reconcile so that her sister could continue her work. Gong Shim was very disappointed. She firmly said she would not give up this lawsuit and then left. Not only did the mother did not comfort her, but also advised Gong Shim not to drop the lawsuit, otherwise they will lose a large amount of compensation. Truly a materialistic family. Gong Shim went to her close friend Go Man to confide everything. After drinking very drunk, she took the familiar bell and shook it while the way to came home. That way she would no longer be lonely, even though she was drunk. But the way home was imprinted in Gong Shim's mind, so she followed her habit of going straight. The next morning, Gong Shim and Dan Tae were lying next to each other. When they woke up, they both panicked because was too drunk. Gong Shim forgot that Dan Tae had rented this room, and Dan Tae also drank too much with June yesterday, so he didn't know what happened as a result of this, but fortunately, they just hugged each other and slept together, not taking any further steps. When Gong Shim panicked and hugged the blanket and ran away. Dan Tae even wore her wig and ran after her to tease her to calm herself down. Gong Shim went to the public bathroom. After relaxing, her best friend also called to say that had found a lawyer for her. When her friend texted the address of lawyer office, Gong Shim immediately went there. Unexpectedly, she discovered that it was Dan Tae. It turned out that he didn't rob money of the children before, but they came to him for help because he is an honest lawyer. Dan Tae charges very cheap fees and works fairly, so he is still poor, while the younger sister runs to find a lawyer to get justice. The older sister went to the gas station again to destroy evidence. She asked the store owner to delete the video, but he definitely disagreed. Must have the consent of Gong Shim to be deleted. Furthermore, Gong Shim also saved this video on her phone. At the same time, even though Gong Shim did not want, she had to trust Dan Tae to tell everything, and at the same time show him the other video. Even though he was an outsider when he saw her being beaten, Dan Tae was also extremely angry, so he accepted this accessory before she had time to thank him. Gong Shim was called out by her sister. Sitting in the cafe, Gong Mi tried to persuade her sister to give up the lawsuit. "If you continue to stubbornly sue, I will lose my job. Who will take care of the family's life?" Because she forced her sister to give up the lawsuit. Gong Mi was willing to kneel in a crowded place. The sister said, "Does she also feel sorry for Gong Shim? But what can I do? We are just people without status in society. I just want to keep this job." Was honest in nature, so Gong Shim agreed to withdraw the lawsuit and let his older sister delete the video. After erasing the evidence, Gong Mi was extremely relieved. She happily called her superiors to say everything had been resolved. So that night, Gong Mi was given a drink and praised by her superior, and was also given special permission by him to join the team of lawyers who will appear in the media. This made Gong Mi's career become brighter. Relatives did not care, but outsiders were extremely interested in Gong Shim's lawsuit. That was Dan Tae. When he learned that she had given up this lawsuit, he was not satisfied. Why let the bad guys get into the camera, but don't do anything like that? So he turned to the grocery store. At this time, Gong Shim also discovered. She went to ask Dan Tae not to interfere in her affairs anymore, but because he was a person who always pursued justice. Dan Tae did not give up, so Dan Tae followed Gong Shim. She sat drinking beer and confided in her best friend. Again, because she was too drunk, so Gong Shim entered the wrong room. She also ate soap and slept hugging a toilet brush, making Dan Tae so angry that he had to go downstairs and wait for Gong Shim to wake up and leave. Dan Tae can go back to the bedroom. It's like that every night. Every time he fell asleep, Dan Tae dreamed of a baby crying loudly, calling his parents. It seemed like the boy was lost, but every time he wanted to touch the baby, disappeared. The next day was Junsu's birthday, but Grandma was not happy because that was also the day she lost her eldest son and her beloved grandson. So Grandma skipped her second grandson's birthday and went to the temple to pray to find her eldest grandson. Every year is like that. So even if Junsu is sad, he doesn't know what to do because the incident in the past was his fault. Not only was Junsu not angry, he also hired Dan Tae to be his private driver to take grandmother there. Grandma is usually irritable, but when she's around Dan Tae, she's extremely comfortable, happy talking to him. At this time, Gong Mi's side was greatly appreciated by the president. To thank this incident, the president's wife called Gong Mi to her charity charity fair. Because it was too urgent, Gongmi didn't have the right things, so she called home and asked her mother to bring the things. But her mother had a stomachache, so she asked Gong Shim to bring the things. When her sister found out, she was extremely worried, afraid that the lady and Gong Shim would meet each other, so she texted her sister to hide. But when Gong Shim saw the lady, she was extremely afraid. She hid to the side and looked at her older sister bowing to them. Finally, she understood that her older sister's life was not easy. The charity party is actually a place for wealthy ladies to show off their children and possessions. Coincidentally, there is also Jun-soo in here. Knowing that her daughter likes this guy, and to be wary of Gongmi's beauty, Lady Kim hurriedly demanded her apron back, because the apron is equivalent to an entrance ticket. Mrs. Kim said, "You understand, for me, I'll call you next time." Gongmi felt uncomfortable inside because of being humiliated, but on the outside she still had to smile and agree. After that, she silently memorized Jun-soo's face. Her eyes, revealing deep, were hard to say. At the same time, Dan-tae and the grandmother also returned home. When they said goodbye to each other, their grandmother still lingered, because she felt an emotion that was hard to put into words in the boy in front of her, a familiarity that tormented her heart. After done job, Dan-tae asked Jun-soo to go out to play ball. On the way, stumbles upon the disappointed Gong Shim on way home. As soon as saw her, Dan-tae teased a few sentences, but Jun-soo complimented her on her very cute hair. This made Gong Shim feel shy and run away. Walking a long way, she even turned around to look in the mirror and smiled at herself. At night, when got home, Dan-tae was engrossed in answering the phone. Every time he focused on something, he would have the habit of plucking leaves or tearing paper. So the flower that Gong Shim took care of wholeheartedly was stripped all of its leaves by Dan-tae. When she came home to find out, she felt extremely sad. She angrily grabbed Dan-tae's hair to take revenge. The next morning, Gong Shim went to interview for a part-time job at the grocery store. She wanted to make as much money as possible so that she could both study and help her older sister with housework. While she was trying, there was someone who silently helped her get justice. Dan-tae didn't have any special feelings for Gong Shim, but only because of his professional conscience. He got another camera footage, recording the scene of Lady Kim assaulting Gong Shim. Then he went to this woman's house and asked her to come and apologize to Gong Shim. At first, Lady Kim was arrogant, but when she saw the video, she could only agree, "Will come to apologize." Gong Shim still doesn't know anything. She is also studying hard to memorize the interview at the grocery store. She must definitely pass the sales position. She studied so much that she fell asleep. She immediately woke up. She hurriedly ran to the company, not expecting it to be Jun-soo's company. Knowing the reason she came, he quickly said words of encouragement and showed her the way up because he was in too much of a hurry. Gong Shim went upside down into the secretary's interview room. Everyone intended to stop her, but when they saw her adorable enthusiasm, they immediately left her alone to speak. But when she found out that he had entered the wrong secretary's room, Gong Shim shyly bowed head, apologized and left. But there was a director there who made fun of her appearance. The man said that if she wanted to be a secretary, she had to have a pretty face and a nice body. This made Gong Shim extremely angry. She immediately turned back and told him directly that, "In what era did you still have the idea of taking out a woman's body as a joke? A person like you, instead of sitting here, you should go back to the Stone Age and live." This made him extremely angry, and Jun-soo's mother was interested in this strong girl. So today, Gong Shim couldn't get a job and hugged the anger in her heart. When she went home to water the flowers to relieve mood, she was called to the gas station. It turned out that Mrs. Kim had come here waiting to apologize to Gong Shim. Looking at Gong Shim's disbelieving expression, Lady Kim became even more urgent. She directly bowed her head and apologized, crying and acting pitiful. Gong Shim was an honest person, so she agreed to let it go. After completing the task, Lady Kim obediently reported the situation to Dan-tae. When asked where he got the footage, Dan-tae revealed that it was in the black box of the fish truck parked in front of the gas station. When he got home and saw Gong Shim happy, Dan-tae also smiled. A person who works such a righteous thing in his heart will always be happy and relaxed. When she known that Dan-tae bought grilled food with Jun-soo's participation, Gong Shim immediately asked to join. Then she ran home to prepare her appearance, and her older sister went online to look up information about Jun-soo. It seemed like she had begun to like this young man, maybe because of his status. By this time, Jun-soo had also arrived. Gong Shim also curled her hair back and brought the things up. Jun-soo immediately asked about the interview situation. When known that Gong Shim had failed, Dan-tae laughed mockingly, making Gong Shim angry and saw him as a thorn in her eyes. But unexpectedly, Jun-soo announced that Gong Shim had passed the secretary interview. This made her extremely surprised. She is even more surprised when she knows that she will be the secretary to Jun-soo's father. But soon they ignored the surprise and sat down to eat together. They were eating happily when a man appeared, making Dan-tae extremely surprised. It turned out that it was his father who had been gone for 5 years. Father and son went to eat noodles together. The dad asked and followed the address to find here. Even though he didn't know the reason why dad left, Dan-tae still understood to father, so he wasn't angry at all. At this time on the rooftop, there were only Jun-soo and Gong Shim. Because Gong Shim said she liked that broken chair, Jun-soo was willing to rebuild it for her. This made her have more feeling with him even more. After the party ended, Gong Gong Shim quickly ran downstairs, told her parents the good news. When they learned that their stupid daughter had passed the position of secretary of the president of Star Group, the whole family was extremely surprised. The mother happily hugged her, the father was so happy that he fainted, and the older sister still couldn't believe this. After this funny story, Gong Shim returned to the terrace. She imagined the sense from tomorrow on where she and Junsu would work in the same company. She also dreamed of a happy wedding with him, but she didn't expect that Dante would know about this, because didn't want he talk this to Junsu. Gong Shim allowed him to move out to live with his father and return the house deposit to him. The next morning was Gong Shim's first day at work, so she was extremely nervous. The colleague who guided Gong Shim was extremely suspicious, just through an interview to be the president's secretary, so she inquired about Gong Shim's background, thinking that Gong Shim had a powerful backer. Very soon Lady and Chairman Choi arrived. This position was chosen by Lady Choi. Even though the president did not want to, he did not dare to disobey his wife. At this time on Dante's side, he was noticed by grandmother, so every time she went to the temple, she forced Junsu to call Dante to take her away. Today, while going to the temple, while waiting for grandmother to burn incense, Dante accidentally caused a scratch on the car. When grandmother discovered it, she extremely angry. He promised to compensate for the loss and asked her to let him go to the bathroom for a while. As he left, another old woman came and knocked on the car door. This old woman wanted to give her some vegetables to compensate for scratching the car. It turned out that just now, due to pushing the goods, she scratched this luxury car. When learned of Dante's kind deed, grandma liked him even more. This side of the Star Company, because she accidentally argued with the CEO the other day. Today he took revenge. Gong Shim and Chairman Choi only likes the long-legged secretary, but can't go against his wife's orders, so the two men teamed up to find an opportunity to fire Gong Shim. It's not easy for Gong Shim here. Just because she stood and talked for a while with Junsu, she was pulled into a corner by her co-workers to warn her. They disparaged her appearance, making her feel so sad that she cried. Dante took grandmother to the company, accidentally saw this, so he waited for Gong Shim to come and said some cheerful words to make her laugh. This scene was seen by President Choi, because wanted to know more about the boy who won his mother's favor. Chairman Choi asked Gong Shim to investigate more information about Dante, but instead of quietly investigating, Gong Shim chose to call and ask Dante directly. She invited him to go drinking, to easy ask more questions, because he was invited. Dante agreed immediately. In order to be able to ask for more information, while Dante went to the bathroom, Gong Shim intentionally made strong drink for him, but unexpectedly, a group of customers entered the shop, so the hostess asked, and Gong Shim agreed to move the table. When moved food to her, the hostess mistakenly carried the glass of brandy to Gong Shim's side, and a glass of light wine to Dante's side. So after drinking a glass of, Gong Shim collapsed on the spot. After waking up, instead of asking this guy for information, she became the one to confide in Dante. She complained about her unattractive appearance, and her older sister is very beautiful. In addition, her family is very indifferent. After drinking, Gong Shim also forced Dante to play hide and seek with her, so one person ran to hide and the other went looking. Gong Shim hid inside pile of trash, and Dante took pictures to help her preserve memories. Then he also carried her home. A memorable night passed like that. The next morning, Gong Shim woke up with a headache, but when she received a message from Junsu, she immediately became happy. He informed her that the small wood workshop where he was an apprentice had a vacant position, so he wanted to invite Gong Shim to come and study with him for fun. Unexpectedly, this message was read by her sister. On the way to work, Gong Shim met Dante. She remembered her embarrassing incident yesterday, so she asked him to delete all the photos. Dante wanted to save the memories, so he did not agree to delete the photos, but he will send all the photos back to her. Due to talking and doing, Dante mistakenly sent it to Junsu. This made Gong Shim extremely embarrassed. She was angry and grabbed his hair to demand compensation. When she got to the company, President Choi punished her for not being able to find any information about Dante. He gave her a 2-day extension. If she couldn't do it, she had to voluntarily resign. This was really difficult for Gong Shim, but she couldn't think too much, because it was time to register for classes at the wood workshop with Junsu. Because read this message, the sister didn't want her younger sister to be close to the person she liked, so she called Gong Shim, come home, and help her get the seal. The purpose was to make Gong Shim late for the appointment. When Gong Shim got home, her sister called to say she had found the seal, so Gong Shim lost her last place at the wood workshop. At the same time, Dante was begging Junsu to delete the photo of Gong Shim in the garbage bag, but Junsu refused. He wanted to keep it as a souvenir. When returned to the carpentry workshop, Junsu was extremely looking forward to meeting Gong Shim, but he was disappointed when he entered was Gong Mi. After losing place in this workshop, Gong Shim had no choice but to go to Dante to vent vent her anger, but unexpectedly, the gangsters also wanted to find Dan-tae to take revenge. Because he is a lawyer who works fairly, he has caused enmity with many people, so they hired gangsters to take revenge on him. As usual, Dan handled everything alone. The attacks in his eyes seemed to be slowed down, so he easily seeing through and avoiding everything, followed by beautiful counterattacks that sent his opponent flying into the wall. Soon he defeated all the thugs. After the fight, he even came to comfort Gong Shim not to be afraid. Then the police came to deal with the remains. When Gong Shim saw Dan-tae injured, he was extremely worried. Two people go to the convenience store to buy personal tape, then applied them to each other. It was raining heavily at this time. In the woodwork shop, the older sister intentionally left her umbrella behind, then ran out into the rain to be invited by Jun-soo to get in the car with him. In the car, in order to get closer to Jun-soo, Gong-mi lied that she loved work on wood very much. Go back to Gong Shim and Dan-tae. They walked home together. On the way, Dan-tae revealed to Gong Shim about his ability to slow down everything. He challenged her to be able to hit him, but no matter how many blows Gong Shim throws, Dan-tae can easily dodge. So, when he wasn't paying attention, she slapped him. This was also Dan-tae's first time being beaten. When he got home and looked at his bandage, Dan-tae felt extremely happy. The next morning, Dan-tae's father secretly came to Director Choi's door. At this time, Director Choi's entire family went to the airport to pick up his mother, also the second grandmother, so that there was only grandmother at home when she received a letter from Dan-tae's father, which contained the necklace that she gave to her grandson when he was young. Grandmother was extremely touched. Dan-tae's father called her to make an appointment, meet the park tomorrow, and don't let anyone know about this. Grandma immediately agreed. When the second grandma and her family returned home, Grandma immediately hid the letter and showed her attitude towards everyone. At the same time, at Gong Shim's house, she started to beautify herself. But because Dan-tae teased her too much, so Gong Shim had to take off her false eyelashes. It seemed like Dan-tae had begun to have a crush on this stupid girl, so he always followed her to talk nonsense. Today was also the last day of Dan-tae's rental, so he wanted to continue holding a barbecue party. But Gong Shim didn't care much and left to go to work, so Dan-tae had to return home to play by himself. Instead of going down to the grocery store to buy bananas, he chose to take the banana tie and pull it up. Unexpectedly, the bunch of bananas hit Gong-mi on the head. She immediately got mad and climbed up to the rooftop to scold Dan-tae. At that time, Gong Shim had came to the company. She immediately ran to meet Jun-soo and hoped he would delete her ugly photo, but Jun-soo refused, so the two of them started arguing because she was afraid of her colleagues. Gong Shim could only stop, knowing her was awkward, so Jun-soo just had to delete the photo in front of her. So Gong Shim was extremely happy to be respected, but when she went into the chairman's room to clean up, she accidentally dropped the glass, so she bent down to pick it up. But at this time, Mrs. Choi pulled her son into the room to talk privately. She knew that Jun-soo was close to Gong Shim, so she reminded him not to let ordinary girls flirt with him, and he must not show pity to the lowly. Unexpectedly, Jun-soo not only did not object, but also followed his mother's wishes. He said, "I already know." This hurt Gong Shim extremely. It turns out everything he did for just felt pity. The small cookies prepared specifically for Jun-soo could no longer be given to him anymore. On Dan-tae's side, he was visiting his mother's photo and waiting for his father, but Dan-tae did not expect his father was actually standing outside the door. And there was also his aunt, who also worked in the same law office as him. The father, because he has brain cancer, is about to die, so he wants to confess everything to his son, but was stopped by the aunt because he was so emotional he had a heart attack and had to go to the emergency room. But inside, Dan-tae still didn't know anything, nor did the story his father and aunt told each other not clear. At this time, Gong Shim sadly brought all the biscuits home for her parents to eat. Seeing that her sister quickly brought the cookies to the woodwork shop, she claimed that she made them and invited everyone, and Jun-soo ate. Now at home, she saw that the room had been cleaned. Gong Shim knew Dan-tae had moved out, so she went to his lawyer's office to say goodbye, but still couldn't find him anywhere. His aunt revealed that today he had found a new place to live with his dad, but his dad didn't come, so now he's very sad. So Gong Shim immediately ran out to find Dan-tae. Seeing him sitting alone drinking, she also came over to drink with him. The two people confided in each other about their own suffering. Dan-tae even pinched Gong Shim's cheek and complimented her on being cute. Then he nodded to the table because he was drunk. Gong Shim had to carry him home. The next day, Dan-tae was sober. Gong Shim immediately came to pinch his cheeks to take revenge for yesterday. Because had no place to go, Dan-tae decided to continue renting Gong Shim's room. Immediately after that, he received a phone call from grandmother. She wanted him to drive her to the park to meet the stranger who had sent the necklace yesterday. But right now, Dan-tae's father was in the hospital, so this meeting would never happen. It was too sad, so grandmother had to ask Dan-tae found her nephew to help her, even though she knew it was only a faint hope. At night at the wood factory, Jun-soo began to feel anxious for Gong-mi when he didn't see her coming. On the way home, he met her and stopped the car to chat. Knowing that the fish had taken the bait, Gong-mi directly attacked. She said that yesterday's cake was actually made for he, but because she was shy, so she gave one to each of us. But today she he couldn't help it anymore. "So do you want to go on a date with me?" Junsu was surprised and embarrassed by this confession and didn't know what to answer. At this time, at Star Company, Dan-tae brought grandmother came back here. At this time, it was also the time Gongshim got off work because carried him a long way yesterday. Her whole body ached today. To repay the favor, Dan-tae invited her to a high-end restaurant to eat. Unexpectedly, Junsu also brought Gong-mi here. When Dan-tae and Gongshim entered the restaurant, Gongshim immediately flipped through the menu to see the price. As soon as she saw the sky-high price, her stomach suddenly hurt. Gongshim immediately used that as an excuse to quickly escape. Going far away from the restaurant would only help her stomach pain stop. Gongshim also said that she was the reason and sorry for the money for Dan-tae. After hearing this sentence, he was both happy and angry. "Do you think I don't have money to pay? It's true, I don't have much money, but I still have enough money. I don't care if you have enough money. I don't want to eat. Don't eat. Let's go home." At this time inside the restaurant, Junsu and Gongmi were talking. She showed that she didn't know anything about Junsu's identity. She kept asking him to reveal himself. She even wanted to divide Bill clearly to show that she was a strong, independent woman. When Gongmi talked about love, Junsu tactfully refused because from the beginning he didn't have any feelings with her. This made Gongmi extremely disappointed. At the same time, Dan-tae and Gongshim were on their way home. Dan-tae always imitated Gongshim's old lady gait to make her laugh. So on the way there is a picture of two old ladies going together. The two of them went to a hot pot restaurant because this restaurant had cheap food and good food. Gongshim agreed. While drinking, she coughed so much that her bangs were out of place. Dan-tae teased Baldy, helped her fix it. Then he used a tissue to squeeze Gongshim's nose clean, just like a good mother. Seeing that her hair was inconvenient because it touched the food, Dan-tae went to get the elastic band and tied it up. Looking at Gongshim's two tufts of hair swaying like an elementary school student, Dan-tae felt even more adorable that she was. Because of drunkenness the next morning, Gongshim continued to be late for work, so she had to rush to catch the last bus, but accidentally tripped and fell. That's when the bus stopped because was too shy. Gongshim decided to lie still and not stand up. Unexpectedly, Dan-tae didn't understand and picked her up, causing her to fly like a duck and become a laughingstock at the bus station. Gongshim felt extremely embarrassed, so she immediately ran down to catch a taxi. Unexpectedly, Dan-tae also ran after her, this time at the law firm where Gong-mi worked, because last time she took over her senior's TV spot, so today she was retaliated against by falsifying evidence in the case that the two cooperated. After knowing what happened, the president was extremely angry and immediately fired both of them. The senior is not worried because her family's economy can completely open her own law firm, and Gong-mi, if she is fired, she will not be able to do anything. At this time, Dan-tae went to see his grandmother as promised, telling him about her grandson who had disappeared in the past, a boy named P.O., 26 years ago, at Junsu's birthday party, because he was the son of a concubine. Junsu's father was also the president. Choi is now not respected by grandmother, because stood and talked with Lady Choi. The mother lost P.O. When the mother ran to look for him, she was hit by a car. The person leading the boy was Dan-tae's current father. For this reason, the grandmother had blamed everything on Junsu's birthday party and estranged him. Dan-tae also felt empathy for grandmother after hearing the story, but he could only comfort her, because how could a child who went missing 26 years ago be found now? After talking to her, Dan-tae immediately went to find Junsu. The two of them have now become close brothers, so Dan-tae also told Gongshim that she was accidentally hurt by Junsu and his mother. This made Junsu extremely surprised. Unexpectedly, he originally had no such intention. Right now, Gong-mi was trying hard to ask for help, but everyone in the lawyer world knew that she had been fired from a big law firm, so no one dared to help. The daughter was like that, and the mother ran to gather with the old sisters, including Mrs. Choi. In the past, Gongshim's mother won the Most Beautiful Beauty Award, but now the floral dress has not yet been unlabeled, making her teasing in front of someone who only won the second prize, like Lady Choi. After the party, Gongshim's mother immediately asked her husband to return the dress for her, because she had been blacklisted by many stores for only wearing the dress once. Then he kept the stamp and returned it. At the company, he knew that Gongshim was angry with him, so Junsu immediately went to her to apologize. He said that day he only said that because he wanted to please his mother, but in fact, he didn't look down on Gongshim at all. Later, he also helped her deal with problems at work, so he successfully received forgiveness, thanks to some advice from Junsu. Gongshim knew how to please President Choi. He happily gave her 2 movie tickets as a reward. Gongshim immediately invited Junsu to go with her, knowing that Gongshim would go to the movies with Junsu. Dan-tae is extremely sad. He tried to hold on, but she decided to leave. In fact, Dan-tae came to the company because he wanted to help grandmother find her grandson. Grandma was also confident when she saw the necklace and told him about the appointment at the park. Dan-tae promised to help her. After returning home, he immediately called his aunt to ask about his father's condition, because she didn't want him to worry. The aunt lied that Dan Tae's father had gone abroad. Heard that Dan Tae felt more secure, but right after that he remembered Gong Shim. Then he imagined her going to the movies and having intimate actions with Jun-soo, which made him extremely angry. Unable to take it anymore, he called to disrupt their movie session, causing Gong Shim to constantly run out to answer the phone. After the movie ended, Jun-soo and Gong Shim went out to eat. When she went to buy rice, she deliberately bought 2 portions to bring back for Dan Tae to eat with. But when he entered the grocery store, as soon as he saw her, he quickly stuffed rice balls into his mouth, which made Gong Shim extremely angry and said, "I didn't steal your food, so there was no need to do that in front of me. I was afraid that you would be sad at home, so I bought another portion of rice. But you were afraid that I would eat your rice? What a stingy thing you are." After saying that, she got angry and left. Dan Tae chased after her, but when he reached the stairs he tripped because he didn't let Gong Shim fall. Dan Tae pushed her up and he rolled down. As a result, the next morning his hand had to be put in a cast. It was also because she left in a hurry that he became like that. So Gong Shim felt extremely guilty. Dan Tae immediately pressed her against the wall and said, "I don't want to see you being intimate with other men." This made Gong Shim extremely surprised and shy. But because she was in a passive position, she was gradually brainwashed by Dan Tae. She repeatedly nodded in agreement with him. When he found out that Gong Shim bought him a lunchbox yesterday with her money, Dan Tae was extremely happy. Into the house, he took off his fake face to enjoy the joy of winning Gong Shim's heart. And Gong Shim, because to atone for her sins, she dedicated herself to cooking for Dan Tae. She also helped him dry his hair and put on his clothes and help him eat. Then Gong Shim agrees to go along and help Dan Tae investigate the case of grandmother's grandson who has been missing for 26 years. They hire people to reenact the disappearance scene to calculate the time. Then they went to the bus station in the past and asked the witness who witnessed the incident. Gong Shim helped him shine shoes, so he told the old story. The child's mother mentioned it butterfly. Other than that, he didn't know anything else. Having finished speaking, just as Gong Shim finished polishing shoes, she accidentally wiped a mark on her face into the shape of a whisker because found it cute. Dan Tae didn't bother to mention it. On the way home, because he was fascinated by the game console, Dan Tae removed the prosthetic brace. Unexpectedly, Gong Shim came back very quickly. She discovered that she had been tricked and was extremely angry and grabbed Dan Tae's hair. But her attitude was, when faced Jun-soo, was completely different. When the president assigned her the task of delivering the dispatch to Jun-soo, she happily did it immediately. When she arrived at the place where Jun-soo was preparing to open a restaurant, Gong Shim agreed to try his new dish and praised him highly. The next day, Gong Shim went to work and made cookies for Jun-soo. This time she gave it to him directly, but couldn't expect that there were eggs in the cake. But Jun-soo was allergic to eggs, so while cooking a new dish, he fainted. The fire also spread and was extremely dangerous. Went home when she heard Dan Tae say that Gong Shim found out that Jun-soo was allergic to eggs, so she was extremely panicked, knowing that her sister was near Jun-soo's restaurant, so Gong Shim immediately called her to help him. Gong Mi heard that and immediately ran over and successfully saved the unconscious Jun-soo. But when Gong Shim called to ask about the situation, she said Jun-soo was not there. Gong Shim felt secure about going back to work, but was made difficult by her colleagues, then forced her to work overtime to deal with the pile of documents piled up like a mountain. When she went to submit the documents, she accidentally hearing the truth that Jun-soo was hospitalized. She rushed to visit him. At this time, Dan Tae also came over when he heard the news. Seeing Gong Shim worrying about someone else, Dan Tae suddenly felt a pain in his heart. In here, Gong Shim felt guilty, but Jun-soo said he was allergic to eggs, so he didn't eat any cake. It was because he was stressed at work that he fainted. This made Gong Shim feel more relieved. At this time, Dan Tae also came in. After asking about the situation, the two of them left to let Jun-soo rest. The next day he was better, so he looked at the camera again and found out that Gong Mi was the one who saved him. He called to meet her to thank her. When asked why she knew this place and came, Gong Mi lied and said she was just passing by and smelled the smoke, so she went in to save him. Jun-soo kept thanking her. Gong Mi realized she still had a chance. Here at the company, Dan Tae and Gong Shim were in a cold war, so she didn't want to meet him. While going to the office, Gong Shim accidentally bumped into her superior. The CEO was poured coffee on him, so he was extremely angry and turned to scold Gong Shim mercilessly. When he went to the bathroom to wash hands, he revealed his arm with an old butterfly tattoo. When he went out to meet Dan Tae, he asked a few questions because he saw Dan Tae often appearing at the company recently. Then he left. Gong Shim also came. Seeing her, Dan Tae immediately pulled her to a corner to talk. Dan Tae apologized for lying that he was injured and hoped the relationship between him and Gong Shim would return happily like before. When he saw two mean colleagues talking bad about Gong Shim, he pushed Gong Shim out and went down alone to argue with those two colleagues. He used the rules to say that the two people didn't dare to argue anymore. Gong Shim standing above heard it and was extremely happy. At this time, where Jun-soo and Gong Mi, his mother, came to thank Gong Mi for saving her son. Then she revealed her family's background. Gong Mi immediately pretended to be surprised. She turned out to be as simple as she knows just now, thus successfully winning the hearts of Junsu and Lady Choi. Gong Mi was not the only one who knew how to please others. Dan Tae is also extremely good at this. To make Gong Shim happy, he had the thought of buying a bunch of wigs for her. Gong Shim was extremely eager to try each one. Dan Tae also tried it out. Gong Shim also thanked him for the company colleagues who came to apologize to her. The next day, Gong Shim wore the wig that Dan Tae bought for her, making Dan Tae's heart skip a beat again. At this time, at the company, Lady Choi sent someone to follow her son and Gong Shim, so when she found out about the two of them watching a movie together, she started to worry and hate Gong Shim because she didn't want this woman to cling to her son. She threatened to fire Gong Shim. Junsu heard that, extremely worried. For the first time, he raised his voice to his mother and said that no matter what, she could not fire Gong Shim. Junsu was afraid that the colleagues would cause trouble with Gong Shim, so he went to her to ask about the situation, knowing that he was sad and angry about his mother. Gong Shim told Junsu not to answer the phone when the lady called. Then she invited him to rent her costume with her. The first time did this, Junsu was extremely excited. Just a moment later, the two people came out of the dressing room with two sets of Korean costumes. Junsu was still shy, but Gong Shim reassured him. The two of them walked together on the crowded street because they thought they were such a beautiful couple. So the two foreigners asked to take a photo together. Looking at Gong Shim fumbling to read English made Junsu laugh extremely hard, but very quickly, he couldn't laugh anymore because he discovered he had lost his phone. Luckily, he just forgot it in taxi. The driver said that work time was almost over, so the two people had to run as hard as to get there in order to take the phone. Luckily, finally they made it in time and got it back. As soon as received the phone call, a work call, knowing that time was about to end, the two of them had to quickly play more together. Because of this fancy outfit, many people took pictures. On Dan Tae's side, he was working at the office when he received a phone call from an uncle who was a friend of his father's about the old tree. When he said this to his aunt, surprised her so much that she dropped the glass, realizing that there was something strange. Dan Tae followed the address to find the place to meet that uncle. This is the land that he and Dan Tae's father bought. There's an old tree up here. He takes care of the old tree very well, but now he about to sell this land. The new owner wants to cut down the old tree, so the uncle called Dan Tae's father to ask if he wanted to take the tree. Dan Tae was standing looking at an ancient tree when his father came. Seeing his son here, he ran away in a panic. Dan Tae immediately chased after him, but couldn't make it in time. While Junsu was having fun with Gong Shim, his mother was taking Gong Mi out to eat to thank her, because to please her, after the meal, Gong Mi gave her an expensive silk scarf. On the car ride home, Mrs. Choi read the postcard. Based on the content on the postcard, the lady learned that the day before, to thank Gong Mi for saving her son, the lady had given her 100,000 tond. But Gong Mi neither took it nor dared to return it, so Gong Mi used that money to buy this scarf for her, which made her love this girl even more. At this time, Gong Shim came back after a date, saw that the water pipe in Dan Tae's rented room was broken. She cleaned it up with him. Therefore, Gong Shim discovered that the personal tape she had attached to Dan Tae was still carefully preserved by him. She also saw a piece of paper with her name on the table because didn't want Gong Shim to read what was in it. Dan Tae swallowed the piece of paper. Then the two people washed the things together that had been soaked with water. Because Gong Shim slipped, Dan Tae took that opportunity to hug her to resolve the embarrassment. Gong Shim held a water hose and sprayed him. They were like carefree children playing. Junsu just arrived and saw this scene. He felt a little uncomfortable in his heart. Dan Tae discovered Junsu standing there, so he called Junsu in to play with them. When he learned that Junsu wanted to escape his mother's control, Dan Tae showed him a more powerful way than Gong Shim is. Didn't go home to sleep tonight, so the three of them went camping all night. The two men liked the same girl, so they took turns feeding Gong Shim meat. When Gong Shim listened to Dan Tae and Junsu's music, took turns talking about their good time with Gong Shim to see who was closer to her, speaking loudly. But when Gong Shim took off her headphones, both of them were silent and didn't dare to say anything because today is also Gong Shim's birthday. So Junsu gave her a very cute rabbit, and Dan Tae gave her a jar of soil containing secret seed. She have to take care of it to know what kind of tree is it. The next morning, Dan Tae went to see grandmother again, but today, the cunning CEO turned on the tape recorder in grandmother's room. Dan Tae encountered the CEO outside. The two did not say anything to each other. Dan Tae went into the room and gave the photo he had reconstructed of her grandson's current appearance for grandmother. Currently need more time to investigate other information. After Dan Tae finished talking, he walked out of the room and saw that the CEO had not left. Waiting for Dan Tae to go away, he immediately entered the room with the excuse of forgetting the phone to get the phone back and left. At the same time, Gong Shim was called into the office by Junsu's mother and scolded. She knew that Gong Shim was with her son yesterday, so she humiliated and lowered status of Gong Shim, forbade her to stop thinking about Junsu. Then she also fired Gong Shim, knowing she couldn't ask for anything more from the powerful. Gong Shim argued with this woman gun to protect her honor, and then quit job. This made Junsu's mother angry beyond words. Junsu, after learning that his mother had unjustly fired Gongshim, was extremely angry. He argued with her, and then left. He kept texting and calling, but Gongshim had turned off her phone, so he couldn't contact her. He was afraid she wouldn't think clearly and do something foolish, but it was almost time for an important meeting, so Junsu only could to call Dan Tae to help him find Gongshim. After hearing that, Dan Tae immediately ran to look for her, running from morning until late at night, and finally found her on the rooftop. But Dan Tae was not angry at all. He extremely happy when Gongshim returned home safely. Dan Tae did not mention anything about work. He only talked about fun things to make Gongshim laugh. He also mentioned the secret seed. If you want it to quickly sprout into a beautiful tree, you have to take care of it regularly. Gongshim was very heartbroken because she was fired, so she vented all her anger on the tree. No matter how much I take care of it, it won't bloom. It's just like me. No matter how hard she tried, people always despised her. Dan Tae heartbrokenly hugged her, as if he wanted to bear all the pain for her. At the same time, Junsu also came and witnessed the two people hugging each other. His heart felt a bit sad. The next morning, because wanted the seed to germinate quickly, Dan Tae tried to take care of it instead of Gongshim. Gongshim did not dare to tell her parents that she had been fired, so she turned off the phone and went climbing alone, so Dan Tae couldn't call her. But he wanted Gongshim to have fun after turning on the phone, so he took an ugly photo of him sent to her. It was true. After climbing the mountain, she sat on the bus to return home. Gongshim saw Dan Tae's photo. She really smiled, got off the bus. Gongshim changed into a long wig, then that make Dan Tae not recognize her, so she had to change her hair back to short and sit and talk with Dan Tae. After speaking, Gongshim felt more relieved, and she also had the courage to tell her parents about her, knowing her mother's harsh attitude. Gongshim was not very worried. When the older sister learned that her younger sister had been fired, she did not feel sad but felt happy because the danger had been averted. Unexpectedly, Junsu came here again to find Gongshim to apologize for his mother's unreasonable actions. Junsu felt extremely sorry, but Gongshim did not blame him because it was not his fault. Hearing this, Junsu was able to leave with peace of mind. As soon as entered room, Gongshim received a text message from a brother who studied at the same university. He told her that he wanted to introduce her to a job. Gongshim naively thought it was true, so she ran there immediately, but when got there, she realized that this was a multi-level company. They closed the door and locked everyone inside and confiscated all their phones. These people forced them to give 10,000 joining fee. Luckily, one guy escaped. Just as he ran out, he met Dan Tae. He knew everything and rushed in to rescue Gongshim and everyone. He also gave the scammer a punch in the face and took Gongshim out of there. Everyone took the opportunity to run out. When got home, Gongshim was so embarrassed that she went upstairs. The next day, Dan Tae went to find grandmother to comfort her. He told her not to worry too much about her grandson. At the same time, the CEO and Mrs. Choi were listening to yesterday's recording. It turned out that Mrs. Choi was the CEO's sister. In the past, they colluded to kidnap Dan Tae so that Lady Choi's son could inherit the corporation. So now they absolutely do not allow any mistakes to happen. So the CEO has went to Dan Tae's lawyer's office. Couldn't meet him but saw a photo of him with his family, including Dan Tae's father. Sergeant An is an acquaintance of the executive, recalling the old days when kidnapped Dan Tae. Director Park ran to ask Sergeant An to hold the child for a day without saying why. The next day when went to Director Park to hand over this child, Sergeant An overheard his conversation saying he would kill the baby, so Sergeant An lied to him that lost the baby. Mr. Park was angry but couldn't do anything. So now, Mr. Park suspected that Dan Tae was the child from the past. At this time, Gongshim's mother used the excuse to review the past to talk to Mrs. Choi. When she learned that this woman had unjustly fired Gongshim, her mother was extremely angry, but because she did not want to reveal her identity, she controlled her emotions, but thought about her daughter having to suffer and be unfair. Gongshim's mother angrily walked to and knocked down Lady Choi to the ground, to everyone's surprise. Then she frankly said that she was Gongshim's mother, seeing that the person who usually flattered her to sell cosmetics now wanted to hit her, making her. Choi was scared and didn't dare do anything. She waited for Gongshim's mother to leave before she dared to bring her sore body back to the company. At this time, knowing that the position of president's secretary was still vacant, Gongmi quickly applied for the job. The president, because he was indebted to her for saving his son, so immediately accepted, while Gongshim was busy serving food. Junsu came to see her, but because was too busy, Gongshim could not welcome him. Seeing her miserable, Junsu felt extremely guilty. When got home, he was informed that Gongmi had joined the company. His mother even forced him to call to thank her. Junsu had to follow suit and invite Gongmi came to the restaurant, opening with a sad face. The next day, Gongmi happily prepared her appearance as promised, but when she went out the door, she bumped into Dante, and Gong Mi's shirt was stained with ketchup. She angrily poured ketchup into Dante's shirt and then went into the house to change other clothes. When she arrived at the restaurant, she didn't expect Dante to be there. He was also a close friend of Junsu. Not only was Gong Mi surprised, but Mrs. Choi was also surprised. When he saw Dante being close to his grandmother, he didn't care if Gong Mi came or not. Right after dinner party, Junsu immediately went to find Gong Shim. He couldn't wait any longer to confess his feelings to her. This was what Gong Shim expected, but now she found it difficult to answer. When she got home, she's still thinking about this. But when Dante got home, he talked to Gong Shim and made Gong Shim forget her troubles. The water pipe was broken again, so he had to go sleep over at her house for the second time. Her parents were also very familiar with that, so they constantly apologized to Dante for this. When the whole family fell asleep, Gong Shim was thirsty. When she went out to get water, she even covered Dante with a blanket, but he jumped up and scared her. The second time, Dante deliberately pushed the blanket out so that Gong Shim could cover it for him again. But this time, unfortunately, it was her father. Dante scared him so much that he slapped Dante painfully. The next morning, because Gong Mi knew that Dante was close to Junsu, she spoke more gently to him, and she also helped him put clothes in the washing machine, which Dante was not used to. When having breakfast with Gong Shim's family, he naturally tore meat for them and then sucked his hands clean, making everyone feel moved to give him that dish without daring to eat it. After finishing eating, Dante went to the rooftop to visit the seed and saw that it had sprouted. He happily reported for Gong Shim, but when he heard her say that she had found a job and had to go somewhere else to work as an agricultural engineer, Dante was extremely sad. They would have to be apart. This side is where Junsu is like a distracted person remembering yesterday. Gong Shim actually rejected him. She wants to improve herself more and also understand her feelings. She sees Junsu as an ideal friend. Dante can't sleep at night because Gong Shim will leave the day after tomorrow. Thinking that he hadn't even had time to express his heart, he called Gong Shim to the rooftop, but he didn't express his feelings in the usual way, but scolded her that if she left, who would clean the house and do the laundry every time the faucet broke with him. So don't go anymore. Once you're gone, I won't be able to bear missing you. Gong Shim, even though stupid, but still understands the meaning of this sentence. She doesn't know what to do for a while. The next morning, Dante continuing to the office, he found a video recording of the person who called grandmother the day before. He discovered that it was his father. Remembering his strange expressions recently, Dante began to suspect that his father was the one who took away grandmother's nephew. He was also very afraid of the stump being dug up, so was sure that there was something down there because of his father's affairs. Dante didn't come home all night, and he didn't know that Gong Shim was always waiting for him at home. She thought she would like Junsu, but she didn't. When Dante said he wanted to keep her there, Gong Shim felt shaken. So the next morning when Dante returned, she came to find him, but Dante said that she could rest assured to go away to work, and he would not stop her anymore. This statement made Gong Shim extremely angry. She was angry because Dante was toying with her feelings. After speaking, she left with a broken heart. She decisively packed her backpack and flew to Jeju Island, where Gong Shim works is a beautiful nursery. There are friendly people here, and perhaps this is the best thing for her. As for Dante, he sent a letter to grandmother, apologizing because he would no longer be able to help her investigate the disappearance. Instead, he went to investigate his father more deeply, and at President Choi's company, he began to miss the stupid secretary Gong Shim, so much so that he mistook her for the new secretary, and Gong Shim was now worked very well in the garden. But when people mentioned that they would eat mixed noodles for lunch, she suddenly remembered Dante. The image of Dante always appeared in her mind, making her panic. Could it be that I liked him? That night, Gong Shim brought the seeds that Dante gave her to look at, to relieve her missing him. Sitting and watching the plant grow, Gong Shim became a little happier every day, until it bloomed into a beautiful sunflower. Gong Shim has also confirmed her feelings for Dante. As for Dante, he is thinking about the case of missing nephew. In his dream, he saw clearly the face of that child, the missing boy that was himself. He thought it was because he was so worried that it caused an illusion. Right now, at Gong Shim's workplace, the branch manager had collected all the money and left the workers without paying them, so the nursery was in total chaos. At this time, Junsu was also on a business trip and heard about this. He and Gong Shim sat down and talked to each other. She wasn't too worried about not being paid because this job brought her joy. What Gong Shim was worried about was Dante's disappearance. At this time, he followed the memory of the dream to find this shop. That photo shop being located near the old house where he lived made Dante even more suspicious. He entered the shop and met the old shop owner with white hair. He learned the truth that Mr. On's biological son had drowned at the age of 5, and that the name Dante was that boy's name, so that meant he was not Mr. On, biological child. Walking out of the store, Dante's mind was dizzy until he fainted. At this time, Gong Shim also returned home to celebrate her father's birthday. She also learned that her plother sister had replaced her at the star group, but Gong Shim didn't care much about the reason. because since childhood, she was not allowed to interfere in her older sister's affairs. After that, the whole family had a happy birthday together. At this time, Gong Shim received a phone call from Dan Tae, the nurse who took Dan Tae's phone to call the number he saved to inform his relatives that he was hospitalized. Hearing that, Gong Shim immediately ran there. Seeing him like this, she was extremely heartbroken. When he woke up, Gong Shim turned into a talkative person again. She talked about funny things when she went to work to make Dan Tae laugh. He also forgot his troubles and smiled. Late at night, Gong Shim did not wanted to go home and stay to take care of him so much that she fell asleep. At this time, Junsu had finished meeting his business partner, so he immediately ran to the hospital to visit Dan Tae. Because was drunk, he staggered and talked like an idiot. Gong Shim had no choice but to help him lie down on the chair. There were 2 men in the hospital room, so she had no choice but to leave. The next morning, Junsu wakes up and remembers his stupid words yesterday. He was so ashamed that he went home. After being discharged from the hospital, Dan Tae immediately went to find his aunt. He said that he knew he was not Mr. An's biological son. This made her panic. Dan Tae angrily asked her everything. She had to tell the truth. That year when lost the son, Dan Tae's mother was depressed and autistic. Dan Tae's father brought him back to cheer her up. When he knew someone wanted to kill the boy, the whole family decided to move away. From then on, they treated him like their son and took care of him. As for why the baby was kidnapped, she didn't know. After knowing everything, Dan Tae didn't blame anyone. He comforted her not to sad, because after all they are relatives and will always be. When Dan Tae came home, he saw the food that Gong Shim prepared for him on the table. This was the only thing that comforted him at this time. It made Dan Tae unable to hold back his tears. The next morning, Dan Tae called father. He knew it was time to tell everything, so he asked Dan Tae to go out to talk. But Director Park came one step ahead. The two struggled back and forth. Mr. Park pushed Dan Tae's father to fall and hit his head on the rock unconscious. When he ran over, this man was gone. Dan Tae quickly took his father to the emergency room and discovered the badge Star Group. Looking at his father unconscious in the hospital, he was very sad and angry. In order to find his true identity, Dan Tae relied on his relationship with grandmother to get a job at Star Group. From there, he able to investigate everything. Gong Shim also received a call from her colleagues saying that they knew the whereabouts of the CEO, who ran away with the money, so they needed Gong Shim to help hold him back. So Gong Shim immediately agreed, must get salary back. Dan Tae knew about it and ran to help. When they arrived at the airport, they identified his accomplices and went to control this guy. Because this guy was so scared, he left the money behind and ran away. When the director came, he thought Dan Tae was the one to pick him up, so he didn't suspect anything and followed Dan Tae. When he got to the parking lot, everyone surrounded him and forced him to return salary. Finally, this cruel old man was punished. Gong Shim received her first month's salary, so she kept her promise to invite Junsu to eat, and Dan Tae was busy with work, so he couldn't go. Going to a luxury restaurant, looking at the food prices, Gong Shim was shocked. Not only that, she also met an old classmate. Seeing Gong Shim, she immediately teased, "Your appearance hasn't changed for many years. Also brought your rich boyfriend to show off." But when Junsu walked up, the other boyfriend immediately bowed head to him, making the other girl humiliated and unable to say a word. After finishing eating, Junsu drove Gong Shim home. Seeing two of them, Dan Tae was a bit jealous, so he followed Gong Shim up the house. When she wanted to go down, Dan Tae held her hand. He came closer to her. Gong Shim did not object, but was waiting for something. But Dan Tae just said, "Next time you have to invite me," making Gong Shim shyly leave. The next morning was Dan Tae's first day at work, but he fell asleep and put his feet on the table, making the President Choi was not satisfied. But when he learned that grandmother, who had the highest position in the company, had hired Dan Tae, he did not dare to complain anymore. Director Park, when found out, immediately went to his sister. They were worried. Dan Tae came here to work, afraid that Dan Tae knew everything, so Mr. Park would monitor him more closely. During work, because was free, Dan Tae ran down to play with the delivery guy. When President Choi saw this, he was speechless and didn't know what to do. But when saw that the former secretary, who had been laid off by grandmother, came to ask for a job again, causing Director Choi to get in the car and run away with Dan Tae. At work, Dan Tae was very popular with everyone because of his sociability, and Gong Shim because had no work, so she backed to the gas station. Everyone here also welcomed her very much. Back to Dan Tae, because he was respected by grandmother. He went to the meeting with shareholders on her behalf, and then he would return to inform her the main content of the meeting. During the meeting, Dan Tae ate cake and drank water, making the directors crave it, but didn't dare say anything. He also accidentally spilled water on a pen, then said that the water was poisonous, so the whole senior director's office had to queue up to check if the water was poisonous. Dan Tae took President Choi's silver copper-plated pen. When he poured the water onto the pen, it immediately changed color. It was clear that the toxin was very strong. Looking at Director Park's face, it was clear that he was involved in this matter. During lunch break, the mother forced Gong Shim to go to the company to give her older sister food. Because she was afraid that people would find out, she had no choice but to ask Dan Tae for help. At this moment, Director Park also caught them talking to each other. Seeing Dan Tae being close to Gong Shim, he suddenly had a thought in his mind. Very quickly, grandmother also learned that the water was poisoned, so she was extremely angry, so she increased security at the company. When Mrs. Choi heard that, she guessed that her brother had done it, so she became extremely worried. The next day, Gong Shim went to the company to give her sister lunch. President Choi was extremely happy to see her, but suddenly, a motorcyclist passed by and threw paint at Gong Shim. This was a warning Dan Tae that the people around him would be in danger, but in fact, this was not done by Director Park. It was because the secretary was fired from Chairman Choi's previous job. Today she brought someone along riding a motorbike to block President Choi's way in the parking lot to teach him a lesson, but was caught by Dan Tae. She was the one who poisoned the president's water bottle. She wanted to target Mr. Choi, but didn't unexpectedly that day. Dan Tae sat in that position and spilled a bottle of water. After being saved by Dan Tae, Chairman Ming didn't want to fire him anymore, which made Director Park extremely dissatisfied. On Dan Tae's side, he was Gong Shim took good care of. Every morning she prepared food for him. Seeing Dan Tae eat deliciously, Gong Shim was very happy. When Dan Tae took off her wig to help her, he discovered that Gong Shim's bald spot had grown hair, meaning she wouldn't need to wear a wig anymore. The two of them danced happily because of excitement. Gong Shim accidentally said she liked Dan Tae, making the atmosphere awkward, but for now it was just Gong Shim's dream. When she brought food to Dan Tae, he went out early. Dan Tae met the friend he had helped to ask this person to deliver the badge to Star Company Director for him, but the identity of the sender must be concealed. This is a badge that only high-ranking people in the board of directors have, so Grandma immediately assigned Dan Tae to investigate who lost it. Now he has a good reason to find the culprit, and his way of investigating was to run into the bathroom to gradually eliminate each person from the suspicious circle, then discovered that Chairman Choi had lost his badge, so this morning he was swinging on the swing with the children. Maybe he got dropped there. He ran to the pet cafe and luckily found the badge. Returning to Dan Tae, he investigated Director Park, but this man quickly borrowed the badge from the director. Nam was about to go abroad, so he successfully escaped. In the evening when Dan Tae returned home, he panicked when heard strange noises in Gong Shim's house. Before that, her parents had gone on a trip, so now there was only her left was alone at home. But suddenly the electricity went out, making Gong Shim extremely scared. Dan Tae followed Gong Shim into the house to fix the electricity for her. Being in a small space made the two of them fall in love, but suddenly there was a someone came and made Dan Tae run away in fear. It turned out that Gong Shim's parents had canceled the trip. They went home and grilled meat, making Dan Tae hungry. Gong Shim immediately ran out to fight with her parents to bring food for him, but unexpectedly, at this moment, her mother came into the room, causing the two of them to press against the wall to hide. The close distance made their hearts beat very fast. After Gong Shim's parents had fallen asleep, Dan Tae could go home the next morning in order to meet him. Gong Shim got up early to wait downstairs. Then she followed him and talked just like the way he used to follow her before. Arrived at Dan Tae's company and met the director Nam, who had just returned from a business trip. When asked, Dan Tae learned that 2 days ago, Director Park had borrowed his badge. At this time, Director Park was aiming for Jun Soo's badge because he was also a member of the board of directors. Director Park came to return the badge for Director Nam right in front of Dan Tae, making him not know who was the culprit. At this time at House Gong Shim, because was praised by Dan Tae for drawing beautifully, so she practiced drawing a lot to participate in the painting contest. This was not only for her hobby, but also for Dan Tae. At this time, Jun Soo had lost all his bags due to being taken by Director Park, so he had no choice but to call Gong Shim to ask for help. She immediately agreed. With her painting talent, Gong Shim helped Jun Soo make a very beautiful restaurant decoration poster. Finally, in time for his meeting, Jun Soo immediately ran away. At this time, Gong Shim then remembered that she also had to submit her work to the contest, so she hurriedly ran there. When arrived, she saw a lot of other people's works, which made her extremely worried. At the same time, on Gong Mi's side, she has become closer to Mrs. Choi. Encountered a person who was a bad guy along the road. Gong Mi used her lawyer defense skills to scare him into running away. Scored one more point in the eyes of the lady. She immediately took Gong Mi to her house to play, and also introduced her to her mother. These two women together paired Gong Mi with with Jun-soo, which made her very happy. On Gong-shim's side, she bought rice and waited for Dan-tae to come home to eat, but he didn't react as violently as before. In fact, yesterday, he saw the picture Gong-shim drew and knew she liked him, but because he was in the situation of being a person without a clear family background, Dan-tae extremely headache. He didn't want to drag Gong-shim into this trouble because Jun-soo lost his badge, so Dan-tae couldn't help but suspect him. When he heard Jun-soo say he went to the conference yesterday and was stealed his school bag, Dan-tae called the place to ask, but couldn't find any information. Actually, it was because Jun-soo organized a private conference that wasn't part of Star Company, but Dan-tae didn't know this, so he was suspicious. Jun-soo, at this time on Gong-shim's side, her naive painting won the first prize. She immediately called Dan-tae to tell the news, but before she could speak he was busy, so he had to hang up. Gong-shim not giving up. In the evening, she immediately brought the painting upstairs to show it to Dan-tae. She said it was thanks to his encouragement that she was able to win this award. So at this present time, if Dan-tae meets no matter what the problem is, let her become a source of encouragement for him, like the way he helped her before. Jun-soo just came and heard these things. He realized that Gong-shim had feelings for Dan-tae, so he very sad. Gong-shim also directly expressed her feelings to Dan-tae, but he cruelly said no. His story was extremely complicated. His father was also beaten to the point of coma by someone else. Letting Gong-shim get dragged into this would be very dangerous for her, so he tried to push her away from him, even though he knew this would hurt Gong-shim. When he returned home and looked at the picture she drew for him, Dan-tae's heart was tormented 100 times worse than the pain. That morning after seeing him, she passed by. The two of them didn't say a word to each other. When Dan-tae came company, Jun-soo showed an unpleasant attitude to him. The reason was because yesterday, Dan-tae hurt Gong-shim. Gong-shim tonight have an appointment to go to a class reunion with friends. During the meeting, seeing people was confessed their love, and Gong-shim's heart was extremely uncomfortable. Why does everyone have love except her? So she got drunk and went to the park to play hide and seek with a child, but the person who found her was Dan-tae because was drunk. Gong-shim told a series of bad things about him that she wrote down so that she could no longer liked him, but her feelings refused to be obeyed. So when she left, Gong-shim kissed Dan-tae. This made both of them extremely confused. The next day, Dan-tae had to continue to be busy with finding the culprit. He asked his fat friend to hire someone to impersonate his father and film it, then send a message with the content of what happened at the nursery to all directors in the company. If anyone is worried, it is the perpetrator. Obviously, this makes Director Park extremely scared. On Dan-tae's side, because Jun-soo keeps showing an unpleasant attitude towards him, Dan-tae is forced to ask him why. Asked more about attending the conference, Jun-soo also answered truthfully that he wanted to leave the company to start his own business, so he lied about going to the conference. The story about losing his badge was true. Dan-tae also revealed this incident related to grandmother's missing grandchild. Jun-soo then also expressed his dissatisfaction about Dan-tae hurting Gong-shim, but Dan-tae could not explain this, could only hide it in heart. After finishing work at the company, Jun-soo immediately ran to find Gong-shim to invite her to eat spicy food. The owner of this restaurant also told the story for Jun-soo that she was the first prize winner of drawing contest. He was extremely excited and wanted her to sign for him. From now on, I will become your fan. This made Gong-shim very happy. When returned home to eat with her parents, she saw Dan-tae here. Her father pulled him in to eat with them. Then he also helped her set up the bed. Here Gong-shim apologized for last night's kiss. She promised not to bother Dan-tae anymore. Even though it was heartbreaking, he couldn't say anything. At Star Company, Jun-soo began to remember the day he lost his school bag. Because Director Park called him to ask him to get the documents, Jun-soo also remembered his unusual behavior, so he began to get suspicious. So he had secretly followed Mr. Park to the nursery in the text message the day before. At this time, Dan-tae also went there to see who the culprit was. When Jun-soo arrived, he saw his mother, not believing in the truth. Jun-soo immediately ran away, but ran into Dan-tae. At this time, Mrs. Choi had prepared enough money to silence the person who sent the message. But on the way, Director Park hit a group of people riding bicycles, and they detained him to pay the penalty so he couldn't come. Mrs. Choi had no choice but to leave. Jun-soo didn't want to be misunderstood, so he quickly ran away. Dan-tae didn't see anyone coming, so also left, returning home. Jun-soo couldn't help but doubt his mother, but he didn't ask anything about what just happened, because was so upset in his heart, he got drunk and called Gong-shim. She immediately came to take him home, because she couldn't take Jun-soo home alone, so she called Dan-tae to help. Jun-soo refused to go home, so they took him to Dan-tae's room. When woke up the next morning, Jun-soo felt a headache. He accidentally saw a calendar with a date to visit Dan-tae's deceased father. It was clearly his father still alive. Carrying this doubt, Jun-soo hurried home. When got home, he found out that his grandmother was going to burn incense for her son today. Remembering the place written on Dan-tae's calendar and where his grandmother was going, Jun-soo was extremely surprised. It was a perfect match. When got to his room, he couldn't help but suspect that Dan Tae was his grandmother's lost grandson, so he went to that address to try and find out. When his grandmother discovered Junsu, quickly pretended to have a headache to distract. She couldn't let anyone find out that Dan Tae was her lost grandson. After taking care of Junsu's side, Grandma and Dan Tae quietly met. The two of them recognized each other's identities, but because they wanted to catch the culprit behind them, they had to keep this a secret. After recognizing their relatives, Dan Tae's mood also relaxed. When he learned that Gong Shim had to go to the seafood restaurant to paint a picture for the owner here, Dan Tae offered to take her there, making her very happy. When arrived, they learned that the owner had asked many people to introduce artists to them. As a result, many artists came but could only choose one, causing him a lot of headaches. In order for Gong Shim to be chosen, Dan Tae immediately pretended to say that he and she were husband and wife. Because he was useless, she had to come here to paint to earn money. This made the boss extremely awkward, so he decided to hire two people to stay and paint for him. Gong Shim immediately got to work. The boss even invited them to eat and drink with the restaurant's guests. He enthusiastically introduced them as a happy couple, made them both shy at first, then happy singing and dancing. The picture hasn't been completed yet, so tonight the two of them have to sleep here. Because said they were husband and wife, the boss let the two of them stay in the same room, making it extremely awkward for both of them. So Dan Tae went out for a while to let Gong Shim sleep comfortably. After she fell asleep, he secretly sat and looked at this lovely face. The next morning, Gong Shim got up early to paint, and Dan Tae also came to help. After seeing the painting, the owner complimented them on the beautiful drawing and gave them money. The owner also helped the two of them take a photo together. While waiting for Gong Shim to return home, Junsu came to find Dan Tae again. Junsu wanted to find out about his father and the message from the nursery sent the day before. As Dan Tae said, his father went abroad and he didn't know about the message. At the moment, Mrs. Choi was at home and gave the piece of paper her received at the nursery to show his brother. The note said to leave here quickly. That's why Dan Tae couldn't see Mrs. Choi that day. Perhaps the note was written by Junsu to his mother. At this time at home, Gong Shim was having dinner with her family when Junsu called to invite her to go out tonight. But because was busy with part-time work, Gong Shim refused. This story was heard by Gong Mi. When she learned that her younger sister was receiving such special treatment from Junsu, she was a bit unhappy. At this time, on Dan Tae's side, he was working at the company when grandmother called him to come home with her. Because there was no one at home right now, she really wanted to see him. Dan Tae immediately went there. Looking at the familiar scene in the yard, he remembered his memories used to happily live with his mother here. Before going into the house to meet her, the two of them talked happily to each other. Dan Tae promised that when he found the murderer, he would return home to live with her. When left, he met Lady Choi and the concubine. He used the excuse of giving documents to the president, so he came and quickly left. Back at the company, Dan Tae was called by the cleaning staff to help. It turned out that when cleaning, they had accidentally collected a trash bag in Director Park's room and discovered this bag was new. They thought they had thrown it away by mistake, so wanted to ask him to return it to Mr. Park. Dan Tae immediately accepted, went to the hallway when he met Junsu, discovered his bag in Dan Tae's hand, and heard that this bag was at Director Park's place. Junsu did not dare to admit that it was his bag, because Director Park is Junsu's uncle. Dan Tae gave this bag to him to help. At this time, Director Park returned to the room and couldn't find the bag anywhere, so he was extremely panicked. At this time, Junsu also brought the bag out in front of him. He also revealed that he was the one who gave the note to his mother at the nursery so she could escape. Junsu then asked if his mother and Mr. Park had kidnapped his grandmother's grandson in the past. At this point, Director Park could only admit, but when asked about the boy's whereabouts, he really didn't know where grandmother's grandson was. After hearing this, Junsu decided to hide this story to protect his mother, and at that time he also did not want Mr. Park to tell his mother that he knew the whole truth. At this time at Junsu's house, Dan Tae has become friends with the concubine. They talked very well, and even played cards together. At this time, Junsu came to find Gong Shim to give her tickets to her favorite painting exhibition, but he did not expect that Gong Shim already had those 2 tickets, and she did not know that Dan Tae had prepared them for her. She thought was given by Junsu. When knew this, he didn't explain anything further. The two of them went to see an art exhibition together. It turns out that when people like someone, they can become selfish, but after the exhibition, when taking Gong Shim home, Junsu told the truth about the ticket. When learned this, she was extremely surprised. Junsu apologized to her, and also come to apologize to Dan Tae for taking his ticket in order to go with Gong Shim. Dan Tae wasn't angry and just quietly left. Gong Shim was already waiting for him. She wanted to apologize to Dan Tae, but he didn't say anything, just hugged her. The next morning, Dan Tae went back to the nursery to ask the staff there, had he seen the man in the photo come here the other day? That person was Junsu. An old man recognized him. He said that this guy once asked him to give a note to the woman. He didn't ask anything more. Even though Dan Tae didn't know who the woman was, he already knew that Junsu had been here. At this time, Junsu took Dan Tae's Tae's toothbrush and tested it. Although there were no results, Junsu could be sure that Dan Tae was his grandmother's lost grandson. He brought this speculation back and said to his uncle, without waiting for the result, he must immediately find a way to kill Dan Tae. Hearing that, Junsu immediately stopped him, saying that you had ruined his life. You want to kill him once again? After saying this, Junsu left. He went to Gongshim to apologize for yesterday. He hoped he and Gongshim and Dan Tae could be happy again like before. He didn't want losing this relationship. Gongshim was a simple person, so he forgave Junsu. After returning home, Junsu fell into a dilemma. Why did he fall into the situation? Then Junsu remembered beautiful memories with Dan Tae. Here Dan Tae also began to doubt Junsu and did not want to lose this friend. So Dan Tae went to visit his father. He confided in his father that Junsu wanted to protect his mother, and he wanted to protect his father. If I continued to do this, would I lose that friend? Seeing that Dan Tae was always in a sad state, Gongshim invited him to go to the park to play. Realizing that he had rarely seen her during this time, so Dan Tae immediately agreed. Hearing that, Gongshim was extremely happy to go home to prepare foods. Both of them chose beautiful clothes to appear the most beautiful in front of each other. But unexpectedly, when they met, they would wear the same matching shirt. This was truly destiny. At this time, Gongmi was also shopping with her mother. But when her mother entered the fitting room, Lady Choi appeared, making Gongmi extremely scared. When Mrs. Choi wanted to go into the fitting room, the staff next door said that the girl's mother was trying on clothes. Please wait a moment. This made Gongmi even more worried. Her mother was in the room, also heard it, so she panicked. Didn't know what to do, so she immediately took off, dress covered her head, and ran away to avoid revealing her face. But when mother and daughter stood talking to each other, unexpectedly, Mrs. Choi appeared right in front of them. She asked Gongmi to go to a cafe to talk privately. The purpose was to humiliate her, and Mrs. Choi also knew about her intention to approach Junsu, so banned from now on. When returned home, Gongmi blamed all sins on her younger sister's head. Gongmi thought that because Gongshim made Lady Choi unhappy, so now she hated this family so much. At this time, Gongshim still didn't know anything, and was still happily had a picnic with Dan Tae at the park. But because while making food at home, Gongshim ate too much to see if it tasted good or not, so now she has a stomachache. While riding bike, unable to bear it anymore, she fainted, forcing Dan Tae to take her to the hospital. The nurse told Gongshim that if Gongshim wanted to be discharged, she couldn't eat or drink anything until she could pass gas, which made Gongshim feeling awkward. When Dan Tae went out to get things, his phone rang. Seeing the name on the phone book with the ampersand of Star Company, Gongshim thought it was a female employee at his workplace, so she immediately picked up the phone. She identified herself as his girlfriend and said that if anything happened, just tell her. She didn't expect it to be his grandmother. Grandma just smiled and hung up. After a while, Dan Tae came in, helped her dry her hair, and then took good care of her. He even stayed at the hospital overnight with her, making Gongshim extremely touched. The next morning, Gongshim offered to help put on Dan Tae's tie, and he agreed, because couldn't fart yet. Gongshim still had to stay in the hospital and couldn't eat. At the company, Dan Tae encountered the director Park. Although there were no clear test results, he suspected that Dan Tae was the child from the past. He remembered that when he kidnapped the child in the past, Director Park gave his ring to the boy to hold. The ring has his name and military position engraved on it, so if this ring is revealed, he will have to bear all the sins. At this time, Dan Tae also took his childhood belongings from his father's place and included Director Park's ring. Mr. Park asked someone to investigate to find Dan Tae's aunt's phone number, but mistakenly misunderstood her as his mother. In order to know the whereabouts of Dan Tae's father, he ordered someone to follow the aunt. At the same time at Star Company, Mrs. Choi told her husband that she was knocked down by Gongshim and Gongmi's mother, and also tell him about the relationship of them. And at the same time, Gongshim's mother also told her husband that Lady Choi had discovered their identities, so the two men met at a cafe to talk. Mr. Choi threatened that if that family did not apologize, he would sue in court for his wife's was knocked down. Gongshim's father used the story that Star Group had unjustly fired his youngest daughter and brought a lawsuit to the Ministry of Labor. Threat on the contrary, while arguing, the two of them heard a song they both loved, and they realized they were both fans of that singer, so they quickly shook hands and formed a friendship. But when got home, these two men lied to their wives that the other had to kneel down and apologize to them and beg for forgiveness, so the two wives thought their husbands had won and were extremely happy. At this time, at the hospital, Dan Tae visited Gongshim. When she stood up to greet him, an explosion sounded. Gongshim had already farted. Because was too shy, she said it was the sound of slippers. The nurse came, asked about the situation. Both of them denied farting because they wanted to spend one more night together because Gongshim was able to fart. Dan Tae bought her food to eat. Looking at the photos taken together during the meeting, both of them laughed happily. By this time, Junsu had received the test results and learned the truth that Dan Tae had the same bloodline as him. On Dan Tae's side, he also planned to meet Junsu tonight and tell everything to him. Because he is a lawyer, so he understands criminal psychology very well. He is afraid that Junsu will commit a crime because of mother, so he has to stop it right now. When he wanted to go public about Dante's DNA test, it was unexpected that the results did not match. But because had gathering family, so Junsu changed the conversation to the fact that he wanted to resign to start his own business, knowing that his whole family would object, but he remained steadfast in his choice. Returned to room. Junsu reviewed the test results. He still did not believe that they did not match. It turned out that it was because Dante found out about Junsu's intentions the other day, so he asked for the grocery clerk's toothbrush, then went into Junsu's office to swap toothbrushes. Thus the DNA result did not match. But then Junsu overheard his mother and uncle's conversation. He learned that his uncle was following Dante's father, so he silently followed him there. And when Dante received his aunt's phone, informed that his father had woken up, so he immediately ran there. At this time at the hospital, Director Park called the aunt and said that he was a colleague of Dante's father. He wanted to trick her into going to the hospital lobby to meet him. Then he went to the hospital room, but did not expect Junsu to follow. After confirming that Dante's father was awake, Director Park ordered someone to eliminate him. Junsu walked past this person without paying attention. When Dante arrived, he accidentally saw Junsu. When Dante went to the hospital room to look for his father was in critical condition. The doctor was trying to save him. Luckily, they was able to save him. When he learned that someone had disconnected his father's breathing tube, Dante immediately suspected Junsu. At this time, Junsu was making an appointment to meet Gongmi. He wants her to give legal advice on opening his new restaurant, because all business matters are legal. This makes Gongmi very happy. Perhaps now she has started to like Junsu as a person, not only concerned about his family background like before. When Junsu returned home, his grandmother asked him to go get pottery from her friend's place, because Dante knew the way the two of them would go together. This made Junsu seem uncomfortable, but he did not dare to disobey her. On the way, Dante deliberately turned into the nursery to find the old man who gave the paper the day before, making Junsu extremely scared. But when Dante contacted the old man, he couldn't. At this time, this old man went to meet Director Park to receive bribe money. He promised Director Park that he would no longer work at the nursery, and would also not revealing to anyone about the note he gave to Mrs. Choi. Because of what happened today at the nursery, the relationship between Dante and Junsu has begun to deteriorate. Dante said he knew Junsu had gone to the nursery, and also knew he was hiding the real culprit, but Junsu was determined not to tell, and wanted Dante to stop looking for the lost grandchild, not let things go too far away. After this argument, their friendship officially ended. After that, Dante visited his father. Dante asked his aunt about the phone number called her the day before, then took his phone, called that phone number. The number was unfamiliar, so Director Park didn't answer the phone. When he asked the Human Resources Department about Dante's phone number, he found out that Dante was the one who called him just now, because it was temporary. Still haven't gotten any results, so Dante had to go home. That night he went on a date with Gong Shim. After the incident at the hospital, the two of them's relationship has improved. They are in the dating phase. While going to night market, Gong Shim wanted to get a fake tattoo, so they stopped by the tattoo booth. The owner here had a beautiful butterfly tattoo. After coming home from the outing, Dante's mind suddenly thinking that maybe the butterfly in missing case in the past was a tattoo and not an object. The next morning, when Gong Shim's family was still having fun about, Gongmi would take a break from Star Company to act as Junsu's legal consultant. Gong Shim happily ran out to tell the whole family that she passed the job interview at the design store. Gong Shim immediately called to inform Dante of this good news, and then she went to work, where Gong Shim was extremely surprised to learn that this was the company that Junsu wanted to establish for his own business. When she found out that he hired her not because of a personal relationship but because of her talent, Gong Shim was very happy. To celebrate her acceptance of the position after work, Gong Shim invited Junsu to eat with her and Dante. Dante was also waiting for her at the company gate. He hadn't seen her come out yet, so he called Director Park's phone number the day before to confirm if anyone was answering the phone or not. But unexpectedly, the phone in Junsu's pocket rang again. This made both Junsu and Dante extremely surprised. Junsu didn't know where this phone came from. Dante asked Junsu to go to the rooftop to talk privately. Dante misunderstood the phone as Junsu's, and he was the one who harmed father in the hospital. No matter how much Junsu tried to explain, he couldn't believe. On Gong Shim's side, when got home, she immediately told her older sister that both of them will work in the same company, because it is a design company founded by Junsu. Upon hearing this, Gongmi immediately lost her smile. She knew Junsu liked her younger sister. If the two of them worked together, then she won't have a chance to be close to Junsu. While the children's affairs are extremely complicated, mom and dad are extremely comfortable. Dad Gong Shim and President Choi sneaked his wife out to meet at the music club. Realizing something unusual in husband, the two wives followed the location and ran here. They already disliked each other. Original didn't like each other. Now they see that their husbands are making making the heart shape with other people's husbands. The two women were extremely angry. Gong Shim's mother immediately pinched her husband's ear and led him home. But when they crossed the street, the two husbands couldn't help but run back to hold hands and promise to meet again, just like the love story of a separated couple. And Dante at this time, because he could not contact the uncle at the nursery, Dante asked everywhere and found his home address. He immediately went to ask this guy if he had been threatened by someone, but because received money from Director Park, so he denied everything and sent Dante back. Couldn't gather any information, so he had to return to the company. Here, Dante encountered Junsu again. He suspected Junsu was the one who threatened that old man, making Junsu not know how to explain. Director Park, standing upstairs, saw this scene and was extremely happy. He pushed the suspicion towards his nephew, and the person who put the phone in Junsu's bag was none other than him. After arguing with Dante, Junsu couldn't justify it, so he had to return to his company, where he came to greet Gongmi. Made her extremely happy. When she saw the box in his hand, she thought it was a gift to celebrate her first day of work, but it was a gift he gave to Gong Shim. Seeing this scene, Gongmi felt extremely sad. After receiving of Junsu, Gong Shim received a phone call from Dante. He wanted to ask her to help him welcome the president. In fact, just now, the two of them were sitting together. Grandmother wanted to see how his future granddaughter-in-law was. Dante lied to Gong Shim that the president was very angry with him, so she came to his house. Now he had work to do, so he couldn't come home yet, so he asked Gong Shim her. Gong Shim was extremely scared, but she still quickly ran to help her lover. When she arrived, grandmother was already waiting in the attic. She quickly invited grandma into Dante's room. Seeing that her nephew's room was both small and cramped, and the refrigerator didn't even have food, she was extremely sad. But then, thanks to Gong Shim's vivacity and loveliness, successfully made her laugh, and grandmother gave her future granddaughter-in-law a high score. When ate the mixed noodles made by Gong Shim, she was extremely satisfied. Afterwards, Gong Shim also massaged grandmother's feet, making her extremely comfortable. On the other hand, on Jun's side, he took out a strange phone that appeared in his bag to call the phone number stored inside. Unexpectedly, it connected to Dante's aunt's phone. She angrily asked why you killed my brother. At this time, Dante also arrived. He shouted into the phone, blaming Junsu for being cruel, making Junsu didn't know how to explain further, so he hung up. Only then did he know that his uncle had harmed Dante's father, so he angrily went to find him to question him. Junsu threatened to reveal everything to everyone. At that time, he would have to go to jail, but Director Park was not afraid. He stood in front of Junsu and called his mother, letting Junsu hear clearly that his mother was also involved in this case. He said that if you also want to denounce your mother, then go ahead. Mr. Park also revealed that the person who planned to kidnap grandmother's nephew in the past was also Junsu's mother, because she wanted her son's son inherited the corporation. This made Junsu extremely surprised and painful. He did not expect his mother to be so cruel, because he did not know how to face Dante. Junsu ran away from home for a while. That night, while walking with Gongshim, Dante asked her about Junsu's whereabouts, but she didn't know anything. Then he asked his girlfriend to quit working at that company. Gongshim, mistakenly thinking that it was only because of Dante's selfish jealousy that he forced her to quit. The job was very difficult to be able to apply for, so Gongshim angrily left. When got home, Dante wanted to explain that he didn't mean it that way, but Gongshim said it first. She wanted Dante to understand that in her heart only liked him, and her feelings for Junsu were just friends. Understanding girlfriend's thinking, Dante didn't say anything more and kissed those who reconciled together. The next morning, when Dante went to the company and ran into Director Park, he put on a fake face and asked about Dante's father's health. This made Dante start to get suspicious why he knew father was in the recovery room. So Dante immediately went to the hospital and asked the technical department to review the camera, and discovered that it wasn't just Junsu at the hospital that day, but also Director Park. When returned, he immediately investigated information about this guy. He learned that in the past, Director Park had gone to the army with his father. When Dante ran to ask a friend of his father, knew that last month Director Park had come to look for his father. When Dante heard this, he immediately ran to the company. Without saying much, he directly pointed out the tattoo on Director Park's hand, leaving no doubt the suspect was him. But when Dante exposed each of his crimes, he refused to admit it, because Dante never had any clear evidence. Dante had to leave angrily, but he certainly won't let this case go easily. But Dante didn't know that after a while of running away, Junsu had thought carefully he had to protect his mother. So Junsu made an appointment to meet with the Director Park and wanted to stand on his side. Director Park took this opportunity to incite Junsu to quickly fire Dante. Unexpectedly, Junsu immediately agreed. At this time, Dante went to Director Park's office to get his toothbrush. He wanted to take it for a DNA test. because on the clothes of the child who went missing in the past, there is still the kidnapper's DNA. If Director Park's DNA matches it, it can prove that he is the suspect. Dante took the toothbrush and left in front of Director Park's helplessness, unable to do anything. So he called Jun-soo, after knowing clearly that Jun-soo had tricked Gong-shim to get Dante's house password, because thought they were still good friends. Gong-shim revealed it to Jun-soo. Right after that, he easily entered Dante's house and took away the box containing the clothes of the child, disappeared that year. Then Jun-soo quickly brought this object to his uncle. When got what he needed, he immediately threw the clothes and the fire to destroy all the evidence. Dante still didn't know what happened. He was still happily eating with Gong-shim. Then the two of them walked home very romantic on the way. But when they saw his father riding a bicycle, Gong-shim pushed Dante down until her father left. She softly apologized to him, but when her father returned, Gong-shim pushed Dante down again. When the two of them got home, they discovered Dante's room was broken into by someone else. Dante immediately checked his evidence and it was gone. Gong-shim also revealed that Jun-soo once asked him about the room password and came here. Hearing that Dante also understood, he didn't blame Gong-shim but hugged her and said, "Things will get worse later, so we have to prepare ourselves." Very soon, the next day when Dante went to work, he was followed by Director Park's subordinates. He used a stick to secretly attack Dante, but fortunately, Jun-soo appeared and knocked him down in time. It turned out that Jun-soo was on Dante's side. A week ago, while still at the hotel, Jun-soo asked Dante out. When they met, he apologized for everything that he and his mother had caused to Dante's father. At the same time, he promised to help Dante and do everything to atone for his mother, because he loved his mother. Jun-soo did not want to for. She continued to make mistakes again. Jun-soo and Dante's relationship also returned to being as close as before. When Dante visited Jun-soo's new company, did not expect that Director Park would also come here. Dante immediately grabbed Jun-soo's collar and scolded him for coming to search his house. This successfully fooled Director Park. After leaving the office, Dante immediately went to look for his little lover, found her, worked hard. He was extremely proud of her. But then when he ran to the hospital, he heard that his father's condition was getting weaker. Dante was extremely worried, but there was nothing he could do. The aunt knew her nephew was sad, so the next day, she went to his house to visit him. When leaving, his aunt dropped the hospital card and was picked up by Gong-shim, so she immediately followed the address to return the card. At the same time, on the other side, Dante's grandmother learned that Dante's father's illness was getting worse. She immediately ran there to visit. After all, this man saved and raised her grandson. Just then, Gong-shim also arrived and overheard the conversation. This made her extremely shocked, but after being told everything by grandmother, Gong-shim gradually accepted the truth and understood Dante's current suffering. Returning home, Gong-shim's parents knew that Dante was going on a date with their daughter, so they called him downstairs to ask about something. Gong-shim's mother kept asking about his family background, causing Gong-shim to stop her parents and then pull Dante out of there. After her older sister found out about this, she was extremely happy, so she and Jun-soo still had a chance to be together. Back to Dante, he sent the old boy's package to Director Park's office and called him to let him know that the real package and his toothbrush had been sent for DNA testing. Wait until the official results come out and he will definitely go to jail. This made Director Park just angry and worried. At this time, according to Dante's plan, Jun-soo called Director Park to inform him that Dante's father had woken up and was transferred to another hospital. He said he would take care of it, then he turned off the phone. In fact, it was just a plan to lure him into a trap. Dante used his connections to hire someone to impersonate his father, then installed cameras and microphones in the hospital room, just waiting for the Director Park fell into the trap. Very quickly, Director Park followed the address that Jun-soo sent to Dante's father's hospital room. He ruthlessly pulled out the air tube, even though knew this was a play. Jun-soo and Dante was still afraid of Director Park's cruelty, but he could not believe that the person lying on the hospital bed was fake and that all his actions were recorded by the camera. Immediately afterwards, Jun-soo and Dante followed Director Park to the meeting place with Mrs. Choi. Mrs. Choi actually prepared money for her brother to give to Dante's father so that he could forget everything, but she had no intention of killing him, and the kidnapping case in the past was also planned by Director Park and forced his sister to follow. Now he tricked Mrs. Choi into saying that he would give this money to Dante's father, but he did not give. He don't let she knew that he had just finished eliminating people. And then Director Park brought this money back to the office, plus the money he had accumulated over the years, and wanted to escape from here. When he arrived at the beach, Dante parked the car and stopped him. He angrily questioned, "Why you killed my father?" This made Director Park extremely panicked. At this time, Jun-soo went as planned and pretended to punch Dante and then rescued Director Park. The purpose was to gain his trust so that we could get evidence to incriminate him because he trusted Jun-soo. Director Park obediently stayed at the house Jun-soo took him to hide for a while. Jun-soo returned home and took the black box from his mother's camera, then went to give it to Dante. After listening to the conversation between his mother and Director Park. Only then could Jun-soo breathe a sigh of relief, because he knew that his mother had no intention of killing anyone, but just wanted to give hush money. At the same time, Dan-tae also convinced the man who worked at the nursery to help him testify. Mrs. Choi knew that the person who sent her the note that day was Jun-soo, then realized that her son knew all her sins. She was extremely worried and waited for Jun-soo to arrive home. Mother and son hugged each other while crying and apologizing because everything had been partially resolved. Dan-tae could feel more comfortable going to see Gong-shim, but because didn't pay attention when he crossed the street. Gong-shim was almost hit by a car. Dan-tae saw, so he quickly ran to hug her. Because of this, he remembered the old memories of when he was kidnapped. His mother was hit by a car because of chasing him that night to let Dan-tae sleep better. Gong-shim was by his side, lulling him to sleep. When woke up the next morning, Dan-tae received a parcel from his father, which contained a military medal from when he was still serving in the army, and also a ring that said position in the army. When remembered the past, he realized that this was Director Park's ring. Just having this evidence was enough to convict him. Dan-tae immediately brought the ring to Director Park's hiding place. He revealed that he was the child from the past and gave this guy a chance to surrender, but Mr. Park refused and even threatened him with a knife so he could win out. But unexpectedly, the police had already surrounded him outside and arrested him. At this point, Jun-soo was sure that Dan-tae was his grandmother's lost grandson. Jun-soo and his grandmother hugged each other, looking at her in his arms until Dan-tae appeared. She immediately left Dan-tae's place, making Jun-soo feel a bit sad. When the three of them arrived at home, Jun-soo's parent immediately knelt down and begged for forgiveness from grandmother. Jun-soo also knelt down and asked her to forgive his mother. Then he met Dan-tae privately, not to blame Dan-tae for hiding his identity, but to take the blame on behalf of mother. Dan-tae did not blame Jun-soo or his mother, but he wants the relationship of the two to be as close as before. The next morning, the news that Dan-tae was the missing grandson of the large star corporation for 26 years was reported in the media. After hearing this news, Gong-shim's family was extremely surprised. The press knew where Dan-tae rented a house, so they came in large numbers, scaring Gong-shim into running away in the house. And the guy who worked at the grocery store, extremely proud to talk about the close relationship between himself and the lost young master Dan-tae. Right now on Dan-tae's side, he is living with his grandmother, and Jun-soo's parents have packed up all their belongings to move abroad. Before leaving, they went to say goodbye to grandmother, but she didn't want to meet them. This made Jun-soo very sad. He sent his parents to the airport, and he stayed here to continue his business, then came back with Dan-tae. Because he missed Gong-shim so much, he had to pretend to be a delivery shipper to bypass reporters and get into her house. When met the person he loved, he immediately hugged her. Everything is over now, they can be happy. Gong-shim also bragged to him that her hair has grown back, her head is no longer bald, and she can walk alongside the young master of Star Group. While the two of them are happy, the Director Park in prison is staring at Gong-shim's picture in the newspaper. In his mind has a scary plan. If he can't handle Dan-tae, he will harm the people around. Dan-tae, to make he had to suffer, he sent his subordinates to deal with Gong-shim. And Gong-shim was extremely sad when she learned that Dan-tae would move his things back to live with his grandmother. On the other hand, at Dan-tae's side, grandmother offered to take him to America to study business administration to take over the group. She also agreed to let Dan-tae take Gong-shim with him, because she was extremely pleased with this granddaughter-in-law. When had the money, Dan-tae immediately went to design a pair of rings to give to his beloved. As soon as Director Park's subordinate saw Gong-shim, he stepped on the accelerator and crashed into her. Luckily, Jun-soo pulled Gong-shim to the side, and he was hit and flew away. Seeing that the subordinate immediately left, as soon as Dan-tae arrived, he rushed Jun-soo to the hospital. Luckily, he only had a broken leg, and his life was not affected. Only after being reassured about Jun-soo's health condition did Dan-tae and Gong-shim, unable to breathe a sigh of relief, they went out to eat together. Dan-tae offered to take Gong-shim to America to study fine art like her childhood dream, but Gong-shim wanted to stay here and work for a while, because she really loved this job. When asked why he was talking about going to America to study abroad, Dan-tae didn't want her to feel awkward, so he didn't say anything more. At the hospital, grandmother came to visit Jun-soo. She said, "That's sorry my nephew, because all this time, I's been harsh and cold towards you." Now she wants Jun-soo to come home and live with her, because Dan-tae is about to go to America to study abroad. Hearing her say that, Jun-soo were so happy that they burst into tears. In the end, she forgave him and accepted him as her grandson. On the other hand, on Dan-tae's side, he went to the prison where Director Park was being held. Dan-tae told him the plan to harm Gong-shim failed. The other subordinate was arrested by the police and confessed that he was the mastermind behind it, so his crime became more and more serious, and he could be sentenced to life in prison. This made Director Park mad, but couldn't do anything. Returning to Jun-soo's hospital room, everyone Everyone in the company came to visit him. They also brought lovely designs to encourage their director to heal quickly. After everyone left, Junsu talked privately with Gong Shim. He revealed to her that Dante was about to go to America to study abroad. Hearing that, Gong Shim immediately understood why the other day he told her about studying abroad in America. When returned to work at office, Gong Shim's sister pulled her aside to talk. She reminded Gong Shim not to continue dreaming, now that Dante is a young master of the corporation, so she is no longer worthy of him. This made Gong Shim start to worry. After meeting Dante, she expressed her feelings. He immediately held Gong Shim's hand to comfort her. No matter who I am, my feelings for you will still be unchanged. This cheesy statement made Gong Shim feel more secure. She was finally able to put the burden in her heart aside and smile. After comforting his girlfriend, Dante, to go to the hospital to visit his father's condition had changed more positively. His father was able to regain consciousness, making Dante and his aunt extremely happy. But his condition could improve if he could go to America for treatment. So Dante met Gong Shim and told her that he was going to America to study and treat his father's illness. Knowing that Dante was not confident about her, Gong Shim encouraged him to try his best to study and that she would stay here and work well. But when she got home, Gong Shim was sad and covered herself with the blanket. She thought about being away from her lover for a whole year. The next morning, because Dante's father's condition worsened, he had to fly over America, was 3 days earlier, so she couldn't tell Gong Shim in time. When heard the news, she rushed to the airport, but it was too late. He had already gone abroad, making her unable to control her emotions and cry loudly. Time passed by. At this time, Gong Shim became beautiful and successful. During this time, Junsu was always by her side to help and encourage Gong Shim. At work, their relationship was also well. However, for a year now, Dante has never contacted Gong Shim, making her extremely frustrated. When eating with her best friend, she said a lot of bad things about him, but she did not know that today was the day Dante returned home. Still the same simple style and melancholy eyes. Just looking from afar, he discovered the girl he loved. But at this moment, Junsu stepped out to be close to Gong Shim. The two of them even talked about meeting their parents, made Dante misunderstand that they were in love and about to get married. But in reality, Junsu and Gong Shim organized this meal so that both sides' parents could meet to resolve the previous misunderstanding. Junsu's mother sat a wall away, hearing Gong Shim's mother say that she missed her and felt guilty for having knocked her down before. Junsu's mother was extremely touched. When the door was pulled open, the two women hugged each other, solving all the doubts in their hearts. The two families resolved the misunderstanding, but accidentally caused a misunderstanding for Dante. He thought that during the time he was abroad, Gong Shim fell in love with someone else, so when her company delivered the design to Star Group, he suddenly appeared and acted as the representative to sign the contract. Dante coldly and harshly criticized Gong Shim's design, making her extremely heartbroken. Then Gong Shim returned to tell this story to Junsu. Hearing that his brother had returned home, Junsu immediately ran to find Dante. When he learned that Dante had misunderstood, he quickly explained that he and Gong Shim had always been good friends. At this point, Dante panicked because he had misunderstood and angered his girlfriend. So the next day, when Gong Shim brought the new design to show him, he invited her out to eat, but Gong Shim did not want to be seen as idiot, so she have left angrily, causing Dante to run after her in panic. He repeatedly apologized for not contacting her for a while. Gong Shim wanted to hit him to replace the resentment she had endured over the past year. Dante did not avoid it, but then hugged the person he loved tightly in his arms. During the year abroad, he missed her so much, but Gong Shim is different now. She is no longer swayed by these cheesy flirting, so she gave him a kick and then left. Knowing that his girlfriend was still angry the next morning, Dante sat down waiting for her to go to work like before. Gong Shim still maintained a stubborn attitude and did not forgive him. She forced Dante to drag her up to the attic, where Gong Shim discovered the potted plant that Dante gave her before he left. There was also a ring in the pot that he was preparing to propose to her. If Gong Shim had discovered this pot of plants a year ago, maybe she wouldn't have been so angry with him, and that's why Gong Shim had forgiven him. She continuously kissed her lover's face to satisfy her long-standing nostalgia. In the end, the lovers could return to each other. Junsu and Gong Mi were also progressing extremely well. The love-stricken girl Gong Mi, after all this time, despite being rejected countless times, still has a fluttering heart for Junsu. Today she once again confessed her love to him. This time, Junsu agreed. They are entering the stage of getting to know each other. Dante's father has been treated very well in the past time in America, so his health has recovered very quickly. So now Dante has returned and brought both his adoptive parents. The two of them came to the house to meet grandmother and Mr. and Mrs. Choi. Gong Shim is still a beautiful and kind girl, and Dante is still a fair and honest lawyer. Beautiful Gong Shim is a healing movie with a happy ending. Even though Gong Shim is not beautiful, also a bit clumsy, but she always tries hard in life and is optimistic and loves life. That's why good things always come to her. So no matter how difficult this life is, as long as you look at life with happy eyes, everything will pass easily. This is the end of movie. I wish you all always carry positive energy in you. Goodbye, and see you in the next movies.